Good evening, students. Welcome to American Government and Politics class. This class is going to be fun. Trust me. If you just pay attention to the lectures, you're going to enjoy the whole semester filled with stories which are vital, affecting our country and your life. Okay. Now, today's class is going to be focused on American ideas, the fundamental ideas that are affecting American politics. Okay. So when we talk about ideas, what do you think an idea is? Is that something you could touch? You can't. It's intangible, right? You can't touch it, but it has an effect on our lives in every form you could think of, and in our government, and on the course of American history. It has. And what are these ideas? I have today about 7 points of ideas, vital. There are so many ideas in American history and politics and government, but these 7 are enduring for a long time. Even before the country was formed, 1776, these ideas were there, and it lasts all this time, and it will last even after we are dead and gone, and it will last until as long as this country form of government exists. So what are these ideas? Are you curious? I am curious to teach you about these ideas. The first one is, when I ask you a simple question, what do you think is the most important idea the Americans value? If you ask a soldier, why are you fighting? If you go to an American soldier fighting in Afghanistan, or when he was fighting in Iraq, or even in Vietnam, or even in Revolutionary War, or in Civil War, what do you think they would say? The most common one is freedom. Freedom, right? That's a very powerful idea. And where did it come from to America? Because not every country will talk about freedom so much. I'm going to tell you that. You'll be surprised. Freedom is the moral fiber of America, the political fiber, the backbone of America. Well, why? One of the reasons is this country, as you might know, is founded on freedom. What do you mean? Like the religious freedom. People came to this country, it was occupied by Native Americans, right, for more than 10 to 12,000 years. For those who don't know how Native Americans came here, they came through the Bering Strait, right, and into Canada, into Alaska, modern-day Alaska, Canada, all the way to the United States and to the South America. But white people, Europeans, came here, and through Christopher Columbus, right, the journey, which you all know. But after that, you've probably seen this in Thanksgiving time, in cartoons, right? The people came to this country to worship their form of God. They didn't have the chances to do that in England, and they went to Netherlands, and from there they came here. So when they came here, they came with the idea of religious liberty. So the synonym for freedom is liberty. Write it down. Liberty. We're going to talk about liberty, and there are 2 types of liberty. Okay, and I'll come to that. So the liberty is the word used resoundingly in freedom movement in America. How many of you heard of Patrick Henry? He's a Virginian. He fought in his speech, he gave an oration in Virginia, the state of Virginia. 13 different colonies. They were not one country, right? We'll talk about that later in the next chapter, but this is ideas. And there he stood up and gave a speech, and at the end of the speech he said his powerful words, which still people remember. He said, "Give me liberty or give me death." And he acted like a dagger going into his heart, and he slouched in the chair. He was giving the speech standing. And George Washington and Thomas Jefferson was moved to tears. They were just standing there listening to the speech. And freedom for him is vital for Americans. Freedom is a key component throughout, right? Many of the policies, political, both the right wing and the left wing, will clothe their political ideas in freedom. For example, right to bear arms. I have freedom. This is a free country. Have you heard of it? To bear arms. That is guns. Right for abortion. Freedom. It is my body. Government, back off. I can do what I want with my child inside. Both sides will use freedom. And so freedom are two types. Write it down. Positive liberty and negative liberty. Now, what is positive liberty? Positive liberty is you are allowed to pursue your goals. There are no constraints. You are enhanced to pursue your goals and dreams. I'll explain it with examples, don't worry. Negative liberty is freedom from constraints or interference in your lives. Okay? Now, this sounds like a definition, but I'll give you examples, then you will understand. So, if I am a student and I'm living with a roommate, and a roommate suddenly takes my car and locks me down in a bunker, ties me up, who's going to come to my rescue? Hello? It's the police. Hopefully, they know. Somebody tells them, and they will come to my rescue. Which police? It's part of the government. NYPD, if it's in New York, it's part of the city government, correct? Not federal government. So that's negative liberty. When negative liberty, that is, I lose my negative liberty, freedom from constraints to go where I want, to go and see my friends anywhere. My roommate takes my car, locks me in the bunker, and that is affected my negative liberty. Government have to step in to help me, free me, so that I could be free of constraints. Positive liberty, on the other hand, nobody is locking me in anywhere, anything. I need to go to college. Yeah, I want to say I just graduated high school. It's free, K to 12. After that, I want to go to college. I need money. Okay? Say I didn't have scholarship. I don't have family money to pay for it. Government gives me student loans. That's to enhance my life goals, right? That is positive liberty. To enhance and pursue my goals, government is helping me. And what if I am employed after that, the degree, and suddenly I lose my job? Does government step in to help me? We have unemployment benefits. Not many countries have. I come from India, and they don't have unemployment benefits. You lost your job? Oh, tough luck. But if you go to Scandinavian countries, which we'll talk about soon, they have so many benefits, far better than America in many ways. So how some countries have it, some don't, right? And that is positive liberty. If you ask people, majority of them, of course, there are some anarchists who will not say, we don't want government, but majority of them will support government's role of helping people in negative liberty. That is, you shouldn't be locked down by some people. Somebody shouldn't kidnap you. Government should come and help you. Whereas positive liberty, on the other hand, is different. Positive liberty, some people will say that's not the role of the government. Government shouldn't be in the business of giving unemployment benefits, giving Social Security, giving Medicare, healthcare. And you're like, what? All these things exist. I'll talk about it. It's all progressive policies. Those things were created by progressive policies, by presidents who are in the 20th century Democrats, who are progressives. A lot of people who are libertarians, write it down, libertarians, I'll spell it for you. I have a board, and so you could write down libertarian, L-I-B-E-E-R. See, it's spelled like liberty, right? You know how to spell liberty. Libertarians, I don't have space, so I'm writing it here. Libertarians. And these libertarians have their agenda of government only taking part in small things. That is important, but small role they play. Like what? like take care of national security, that is military protecting you from outside threats, police protecting you from inside threats, and courts. Of course, courts, if you and I have a dispute, we settle in the court, which is run by government. And roads has to be laid, lights first, street lights, things like that. But other than that, get out of my way is what libertarians would say, so that government get out of my way so I could pursue what I want to pursue. They want a small role of the government, whereas people who support positive liberty want a big role of the government, large role. Okay? So that's the difference between positive liberty and negative liberty. And people in American culture, political culture, support both sides. Okay? And you might ask me, what is culture? Culture is studied by especially cultural anthropologists, right? And there's a good definition. Anthropologists said, like, culture is the collective stories a group of people tell about themselves. So your culture is, you're from a different country, I am from a different country. I could tell about my culture, and people like me from my country, India, they tell stories, historical stories and other things. Those are culture. The political culture is about the politics in especially, because there's social history and different other aspects we don't want to see. Okay? You following me? Culture? Okay. So now these ideas have an effect in political culture. So far, what you've seen is one idea. That's freedom. Positive liberty, negative liberty. Now, I already said there are countries which value other ideas more than freedom. Really? Yeah. For example, write down the second idea, equality. Equality. What does equality mean? Equality. Everyone being equal, right? Right. So, about 100 years later, after the whites left from England to America, another set of group of whites from England left to New Zealand. Yes, that small country right close to Australia. If you go to New Zealand, both the right wing and left wing value equality more. Equality more than even freedom. They get goosebumps, like Americans, when they talk about freedom, they get goosebumps. They'll get goosebumps on equality. In fact, there's a book which talks about they have 60, 70 different words, they speak English, of synonyms for equality. Like square and fair deal, which Teddy Roosevelt used to say here as well, things like that. So now, equality, I'm going to talk about 3 different types of equality, and then I can describe. You will understand more in detail. Write down inequality. You could write down this like in even in liberty, positive liberty, negative liberty, you could write it down as Roman letter 1, Roman letter 2, or A, B, like that. Here, inequality, I'm going to describe 3 things. You could write A, political equality. What is political equality? Political equality is that everyone has the equal say in government. Everyone has one right to vote, first of all, right? Did the country start that way? No. When America became its own country, the people who had the right to vote were just white men, landowning men. Not even poor white men can vote. Black people can't. Most of them were slaves. White women can't. Native Americans can. So they were all excluded. It was not an entire franchise. That means they didn't give voting rights to everyone. It's only small, but it grew little by little, right? The 19th century, black men got the right to vote. And then 1920, women got the right to vote. Slowly it grew. People like me, when I came here, I wouldn't get citizenship if I would have been here in 1940s. It took time for people from other countries, Asia and others, to be accepted as citizens. And then they get the right to vote. So it's little by little, little by little, little by little. Political equality. Now you might think, okay, now anybody who becomes a citizen can vote in this country. Does that mean we have political equality? No. What do you mean? Well, there are people who are barred from voting. There are, of course, it's divided. You know, felons who go to jail for crimes. Even after serving the sentence, they come out. Some states would not allow them to vote. Or even if they're in prison, they will not be allowed to vote. They lose their right to vote. But some states are changing that, reversing that. Some set of people want them to vote even when they are in prison. Their right to vote should not be taken away. So the recent Democratic primary, Pete Buttigieg, who ran as a Democrat, did not want to give voting rights to felons. Whereas Bernie Sanders, a much progressive candidate, said you cannot take away voting rights from felons or others because then you will be given reason for some way or some form, and it's a slippery slope. One by one, people could lose their voting rights. So you see, even inside Democratic Party, the differences. Similarly, you will see differences inside Conservative Party, Republicans as well. So the point is, not everybody has still equal political voting rights. In fact, even people who haven't done any felony, who live outside, people of color, have a hard time getting to polls and voting because some places ask for ID cards. And that's a money most people cannot afford to spend when you're poor. It's not $25 lying around. If you're living in $18,000 and with 3 children, you understand? So a year, yeah, they won't have IDs, and if they don't have IDs, they can't go and vote. So it's voter suppression. So political equality is in name. It's not in reality for everyone, but the equality fight goes on. The next one, social equality. Social equality means everyone is equal in our society. Is that true? Is that everyone equal in our society? If it is, then you wouldn't have heard of Black Lives Matter, right? The whole protest and marches, all is about blacks are still treated as second-class citizens and even killed by police officers. And this is a struggle which goes back even before the formation of the country. 9 out of 10 blacks during Civil War time lived in the South and were slaves. Yes, Lincoln gave slavery emancipation, but then Congress has to do an amendment. But then later, they went through a lot of struggle, which we will talk about in civil rights in this class, a whole class lecture. But now just a snippet. Martin Luther King had to march, and they got their voting rights back. But were they able to deploy it fully? Are they equal socially? Voting is political. Socially, they were used to sit in the back of the bus in the 1950s, 40s, right? And whites are the only one who could sit in the front. You know Rosa Parks' story. But now, do they still have social rights, equality? Seems like not. Yeah, I had students, 1 or 2, who would say there's no racism. I hear you. And there are students who would say, no, racism is still there, clear and sound, and it's a systemic racism is there. As a system, they are marginalized. We'll talk about it in civil rights. Write down the third one. You wrote the first 2, right? The third one for rights is economic equality. Economic equality. Political equality, social equality, economic equality, A, B, C. Economic equality is, do all of us have the same potential to make money if our talents and our abilities are same? No, based on gender and race, the income varies and even wealth varies. For example, say you are white man, I'm a black man, and we both went to same school, same GPA, we have a same salary in a new job. Your wealth and my wealth will differ on average. Yeah, same income, but wealth, you know what a wealth is, right? Income is different. same income, but for every dollar you have as a white man, as a black man, my wealth will be like 9 cents. Why? Multiple reasons. Some are because they were not, as a black man, my father was not allowed to own homes. Redlining, we'll talk about that later. And by various ways, my ancestors have been marginalized, that I do not have a wealth to inherit. So women, it's not just among men, white women, if you take, there's this even income gap for the same talent, same education. For every dollar a man makes, 80 cents a woman. And if it's a black woman or a Hispanic woman, it goes down further. For every dollar a man makes, it'll be like 60 cents, 50 cents. So equality is still not there. But all men are created equal. You heard of that quote? Yeah. Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson's ideals. These are ideas. But in reality, it's different. So you must know these ideas because it has an impact on you. And the protests which are going, this is both social, political, and economic protests. Okay. Now let's write down the third idea. Third idea. It's called self-rule. Self-rule. Okay. Now there are two types in self-rules. Self-rule, what does self-rule means? Self-rule means that you're not ruled by an external power, which is outside your country. Like America was ruled by Great Britain, right? The king from across the Atlantic. He didn't step in America. He just stayed there and collected taxes from the 13 colonies. Not only these colonies, he ruled all over the world, even India, right? Indians were paying. India was one of the richest countries in the world when the British came. By the time they left us 200 years later, we were one of the poorest countries. Swindled everything. So without no taxation, without representation. Have you heard of this famous quote? Yes? That is people protesting. You just tax us, but doesn't give us representation. We don't get to represent ourselves. One of us not ruling us. It's someone else ruling who doesn't care about our problems. So self-rule is one of us governing us, not ruling. King rules. Government, elected officials govern. Right? So self-rule, that's what self-rule is. There's America created a type of government what we have. Its model come from, write down, there's two, A and B under self-rule. One is called democracy. What does democracy mean? You know how to spell democracy. Demo means people. Kracy, C-R-A-C-Y. Kracy means rule. It's Greek. It came from Greek, ancient Greek, that is more than 2,000 years old. Athens, a small city in Greece, right? City-state. It's a small city-state at the time. Now it's a big city. Athens, or Athens, A-T-H-E-N-S, A-T-H-E-N-S. Athens created democracy. But at the time, democracy is direct democracy. Write down direct, like D-I-R-E-C-T. What is direct democracy? So a bunch of men would gather in an auditorium-like structure and say if they want to go to war, one of them will get up on the stage and say, we should go to war because blah, 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 blah. People will clap, you get down. Another guy will know we shouldn't go to war because blah, 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 blah. Clap. Then they will take the votes on both sides. Whichever side wins, they go to war or not. Every policy is determined like that. Do we do it like that? Do you make a decision to whether America should go to war or not? You and I don't. Who does? Congress votes. That's right. Both the House of Representatives and Senators vote whether to go to war or not. Not you and me. Not you and me. That's where the second word comes, republic. Write it down. Republic, R-U-P-U-B-L-I-C. That is an idea from Roman Republic, where senators were elected. Senators, S-E-N-A-T-O-R-S, Senators, Senators. Senators, the Senate, the word itself comes from Latin. Latin is the language of the Romans, ancient Romans. Senility, old age. These are old people elected to the Senate. So, republic, what does that mean, republic? In there, you elect people and they go and make decisions on your behalf. You don't get to make decisions. You get to make decisions on who you elect, but the elected officials make the decisions on your behalf. Now, here's the question. In the United States, that means we do elect people. They make decisions on our behalf. Everything from going to war, how much to tax, who to tax, how much, and everything. Like giving economic stimulus packages, right? All this government decides. We don't get to decide. So does that mean we are a republic? Write down the third one, C. We are not a democracy. We are not a republic exactly. We are partially a democracy, or partially a republic. Really? Yes. We are a mixed system. So write down the mixed system is democratic republic. We are a democratic republic, the country is. So what does that mean? Well, even though the elected officials make decisions on our behalf, we could put pressure on them by protesting, marching, all those things, and putting pressure, calling the elected officials. That's a democracy. That action is democracy. Republic is you have them make the decision. So democratic republic, we have a mixed system, and we have a self-rule. It is even the president of the United States. It's one of us. It's the citizen of this country. And then when he finishes his job, he comes and becomes an ordinary citizen, just like Barack Obama or Jimmy Carter, the oldest president alive. Everyone has to, boom, come back and be an ordinary citizen. Yes, of course, they will be known around the world. They will never be like ordinary, but they are not having powers like they had, because a king, until he dies or be killed or overthrown, he will have powers. And that's a king, but not here. They have finite time. One of us we elect, right? The king dies and the king's son becomes. Can Barack Obama's son, daughter automatically become? No. Trump's daughter automatically become? No. They have to run for office. We get to decide. Democratic republic. Very good. Self-rule. That means one of us elect the highest leader, members of Congress, city council in New York City, the mayor, everyone is one of us there, making the rules and regulations and laws for us. Okay. Fourth point, write it down. Limited government. Limited government. When I say limited government, you're like, that means small government? Yeah. Limited, small government. This idea goes back even before America's independence. Yeah, even before 1776. 1691. Okay, so the king ruled all the 13 colonies. We talked about it. And the king appoints a governor, right? People don't get to elect like now. A governor. So New York, there was a governor was appointed by the king of England. And he was ruling all the New England states. New England states means New Hampshire, Vermont, all these states, Massachusetts, all these New England states. And Connecticut said, nah, I'm not going to be obeying to what you say. And the king and the governor went there to fight with the militia, which is armed men of Connecticut, saying, no, we're not going to obey. And he said, I have authority from the king. You should comply. You're under my jurisdiction. They said, no. And they said, if you're getting away, are you going? Are we going to put a bullet through you? Well, they said, the sunlight is going to come through you unseen. That means they're going to kill him. So the governor got back to New York. Of course, the king didn't know about it because across the ocean, it takes months for information to go from one place to another, weeks in ocean travel. Now it's like 6-8 hours flight. Not then. Yeah, totally different time. Okay. So limited government idea is not just at the time. even after America's independence, people did not want to trust the federal government. Remember, there were 13 independent colonies. They all had a small government. But when the whole central government was created, George Washington became the president. That's a federal government. They didn't want to trust it because they are afraid of anything which is far away that they cannot relate to. And the trust is eroded over time. And even now, if you ask Americans, they trust the federal government lesser than state governments and city governments and municipals. Always. It doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat. But especially Republicans have a smaller government interest, limited government. In fact, Ronald Reagan, when he was running for president of the United States, he was a governor of California. Later, he was running for president of the United States. And in his campaign trails, he would say, the most scariest words to hear is, I'm here from the federal government and I'm here to help you. That's the scariest words. Because his voters, conservative voters, believe in limited government, and he believed in government should get out of the way and people could prosper on their own. He said government is not the solution, government is the problem. How about that? And he's running for a government job. He won 2 elections, right, as president. So a limited government idea still exists, and it'll exist all along, as I said, even after we are gone. The next one, write it down, 5th one is individualism. Individualism. You could write in this individualism versus versus communal. Okay? What do you mean individualism versus communal? These are 2 ideas, but opposing ideas. So when you say individualism, Americans, rugged individualism, they are not communal. I'll give you examples to explain this. You go to, say, Norway or Denmark or Sweden, Iceland. These countries are Scandinavian countries. And you will notice that people who work there have so many benefits. If they lose their job in, say, Denmark, 80% of their income they will get for a year or 2 sometimes. What do you mean? We get like, I think $450 or $460 is the maximum per week you could get in unemployment benefits. Many of you may not be able to pay rent with that money in New York City because it's expensive. But there, they get 80% of their pay. Unemployment benefits are high. Same with if you have a child, you could stay in home for a year with paid time off. All those things, why? Who pays for it? Government pays for it. Where do the government get the money from? They tax the rich. It's like 50% tax. It's very high, right? 50% tax. Here, if you take, corporations pay less. People pay, yes, in paper, corporations have high, but the loopholes and other things, finally, they end up paying almost 9%. That's the truth, okay? People pay about like 35% taxes. 50% there. But they use that for the benefits of the people. That's communal. We are one people, we support each other. That's the idea. America is about individualism. That means you're on your own. Your success is based on your work, not on what government gives or not. You could work hard and climb up the ladder. Have you ever heard of this saying? Pull yourself with the bootstraps, they would say. Pull yourself up with your bootstraps. I think Martin Luther King who said, what if someone doesn't even have a bootstrap? There are people who are so poor, right? So some people who are liberal would say like, yeah, Trump get to do business because his father gave him 480 million something inherited. But he said to minimize it when he was campaigning, I got like $1 million loan from my dad, nothing much. You know how many people would not be able to borrow $1 million from their parents, right? So government is the one which has to help. Government helps so that it, remember, equality. It brings equality to everyone. Anybody who wants to go to school, get a loan, that's government providing the loan. Those things were not there in the 19th century or anything. it all changed little by little. We'll talk about that later. So individualism versus communal. America is more of an individualistic society. It believes your success is not on others. It depends on you. You are on your own. If you fail, that's why poverty is considered here as your mistake, rather than it's the mistake of the background, where he comes from, how his settings, his skin color, the zip code he was born into, the schools he was constrained to go to because of the zip code he is born, and many factors which affects, which we'll talk about later, limits one's potential to grow higher up on the ladder. But that's the belief, American belief. These are belief systems. Ideas are group of cultural belief systems, right? Individualism. It has its benefits. Like Elon Musk, who came from South Africa. Why don't he stay in South Africa? He came to America and he rose all the way to become a billionaire launching rockets, SpaceX and Tesla cars. And it's like about $20 billion worth. You can do it in America. If you go to Denmark, freaking 50% will be taken away. It's not that I'm saying that the country, Scandinavian countries, doesn't have billionaires. They do, but they're not going to be as rich as American billionaires because their money is taken away from them. So, like what we're talking about? America is so unequal that top 3 richest people have more money than the bottom 50% of Americans. So we have 320 million people here in this country. 160 million people, collective wealth in the bottom 160 million, collective wealth is lesser than the 3 people, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. How about that? Another inequality, fact, data. 1% of Americans, about 3 million, 3.5 million, have more money than the bottom 90% of Americans. 90%. Yes. That's how unequal our society is, because it's based on individualism. You could go as far as high you want, but there will be many struggling people. America was not like that before. What do you mean not like that? When George Washington was elected 1790, when he went around the country, there will be some poor people, some rich people, most of them middle class. Whereas now, there's some small middle class, a small percentage of highly wealthy, a huge chunk of people, about like 500,000, 500,000 homeless people. You wouldn't see that in George Washington time. Not even in 19th century when Lincoln was president. It changed. Why? What happened? We will discuss this in this course. You would learn so much about American society and American culture in this course that you'll be able to teach a lot of people who are much older than you, who've been living long in America, who would not know. And that's the fun part of knowledge. You would see things differently, not just teaching others and enlightening others, but to see things differently. Okay? So the next one, write it down. 6th one, American dream. When I say American dream, you've definitely heard of it, right? All the time, people say that. But do you think other countries have a dream? I come from India. You think we say Indian dream? No. We don't have Indian dream. You go to Japan, you say Japanese dream. It's American dream. What's that dream? It actually comes from the idea of even Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, story in few lines. You got to check out the book Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin if you're interested. That book has created so many millionaires in the 19th century. That's the story of Benjamin Franklin. In a short book, he put it. This is Benjamin Franklin from a family of like 13, 14 children. He just left Boston as a teenager in a box full of books, few books, a couple of clothes. He moved to Philadelphia. That's like moving to another country at the time, from Boston, Massachusetts to Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. He started working in a printing shop as like assembling the letters. By the age of 40s, early 40s, he owned the store and he is modern equivalent of a multimillionaire. Retired from the business. But the business, he made people to run it. And he went on to do politics, diplomacy, and scientific research. Remember the lightning rods in top of all the buildings? Benjamin Franklin's invention. And you probably heard of with the electricity in the kite, flying the kite and putting the key, you would have seen it. Benjamin Franklin. He was able to spend time on this because money kept coming from it. And how did he do it? You have to read the book. I'm not going to tell you all the story here. That's the American dream. What is that in one line? It is, if you have the talent and hard work, two things, you can reach whatever you set your mind on. Pretty cool, right? So most of the American dream is a white picket fence, a house with car, a job, able to pay maybe children's college. That's the American dream. I've heard students say a billionaire, to be an Instagram star. No, those are not American dreams. Yes, you could become as successful as you can, but that American dream in general is a middle class life, and that you could reach. Now here's the question. Do everyone who has a talent, as it said, that is capacity, and capacity for hard work, those two things, can reach the goal, what they want? Not really. Now, it has changed. Remember I talked about inequality? Inequality affects growth. So I have to show you, because your book doesn't talk about it. If I draw American society into 5 rungs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Like a ladder, 5 rungs. So this is poor people. Poor people, okay? Just above poverty or just above. Middle class, upper middle class, very wealthy, the top 1%. In 19th century or anything, if you're born here, like Lincoln, you could go all the way here. It's not because of wealth, he become the president of the United States, right? And Americans like to tout that Lincoln was considered as a rail splitter. That means like he was working, breaking wood, and that was touted. And later all the candidates now talk about how they grew up as an ordinary person, and now they get to run for president or mayor or whatever. Now here, if you're born in America now, based on your skin color, your growth here to even this level is affected. Very small percentage of them make it here if you're black. Like, I don't want to give you the wrong numbers, but 34, 35%. If you're white, maybe 15. And not everybody who start here, work hard, will come here. In the past, if you're born here into money, and if you don't work and maintain, you will drop. But now, if you're born here, you will be there because your parents will send you to fancy schools that'll open doors for you and will get you opportunities. It's called stickiness factor. Where you are born determines your life course. Stickiness, like stick, you'll stick to that. It's hard to grow. Upward mobility, this is called. Upward mobility is lower in America now compared to Canada, Western Europe, or Nordic countries. Some even said like American dream is more possible in Denmark than in America. It's sad. Both the right and left agree how to address that policy changes between right and left. Okay, that's American dream. Let's talk about the last one, 7th idea, which is an important one. 7th idea is religion. Religion is a powerful one idea. It's the idea 800-pound gorilla in American politics. Americans, 95% of them believe in God. 60% of them go to church, members of church. 40% regularly go to church. Usually around the world, poor countries are highly religious. When countries start getting richer, they will not be more strong affinity to God. America is the exceptional country. It has American exceptionalism. Have you heard of it? Exceptional country. In religion also, it's exceptional that it plays a strong role in America. And it plays a role in politics. But you heard of it. There's a separation of church and state. You heard of that idea? Separation of church and state. What does that mean? Politics and religion should not mix. Where did that idea come from? some of you might say Thomas Jefferson. Where did he get it from? He got it from an American before American Revolution. His name is Roger Williams. Roger Williams, like Robin Williams, Roger Williams. And he was in the Massachusetts colony. Okay, I have a hard time pronouncing Massachusetts colony. And he challenged the governor. At the time, everybody has to go to church. The governor will say, we got to go to church. Everybody goes to church. He said, people who don't want to go to church don't need to go to church. That was a big challenge to the governor. You can't say that. And they excommunicated him. X means EX, communication. You know how to spell communication. EX, communication. That means you're kicked out of the church. You're like, oh, what's the big deal? At the time, if you're kicked out of the church, you're going straight to hell, down. And he was kicked out of the colony. So that means you're out on your own, and there are Native Americans who could probably kill you. He was almost 70 there. He walked in the snow. It's a long story, I'm making short. He was friends with the Native Americans. He spoke their language. He went and found his own freaking colony. And there, religious freedom was practiced. You know what's his name? I'm sorry, you know his name. What colony that is? Rhode Island. Rhode Island. Right. Now, Rhode Island is a smaller state. Now, you have to understand, that idea was picked by Thomas Jefferson. Before I come to Thomas Jefferson, Roger Williams is a big believer. It's not like, oh, I don't believe in God, I don't want to go to church. He's a big believer. He thought mixing politics and religion will affect religion. Politics will corrupt religion, not the other way like people believe now. Now they think like, oh, religion will affect politics. Actually, politics will affect religion, he thought, and he doesn't want it to mix. Interesting, isn't it? Okay. Now, Thomas Jefferson created this separation of church and state, which is in our Constitution. First Amendment, Congress shall not establish any religion. They should not support one religion over the other. Also, exercise clause. We will talk about that in detail when we talk about Constitution. That government should not intervene in you practicing any form of religion. You could practice anything. I could just worship the table and say, that's my God. Nobody can stop me. That's the freedom to practice whatever religion I want. And the country has so many religions. Not Christianity alone has so many divisions. Each group, Methodist, Presbyterian, name it. There are Jewish, about 6.5 million Jews in America, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs. It's a very diverse country. So when you bring religion to it, which religion do you support? You don't want to take support over one religion over the other, the government. And George Washington himself, at the time there were Muslims and Jewish in this country, went to the Rhode Island synagogue and supported them. Okay? He wrote a letter supporting their practice and the worship. So point is that there is a religious freedom in America. Government should not step in. So our motto was E pluribus unum. You know what that means? E pluribus unum. Yeah, pluribus, third, unum. That means out of many, one. Out of diverse different states, one country. Different type of people, one people. That was the motto. But now, if you look at your dollar bill or you go to court, what's the thing written right behind the judge? In God we trust. You could ask, wait a minute. You said separation of church and state, there's God. That happened in the 1950s when Eisenhower became president. He was conservative. Conservatives want more role of God in politics. They want to have school prayers in public schools. The liberals oppose that. Why do the liberals oppose it? Because there are people of different religious backgrounds there. If you just make them all pray to Christian God, they have their God. So you're intervening in what religion they have to practice. So the fight still goes on. It's a never-ending fight. Religion has an impact in politics, and it has an impact in many policies, including, for example, gay rights was stopped for a long time in this country, only in 21st century. Now, gays are allowed to get married marriage equality. And the conservatives who opposed it was some of them opposing based on religious reasons, because it's written in the Bible that sodomy is bad. It's a story of Sodom and Gomorrah, if you're familiar with Bible. So religion shouldn't be part of politics. According to the liberals, conservatives want more religion in the politics. That you got to understand. Now, write down 8. This is not an idea. This is something you need to know. Culture, you know what culture is. I already mentioned. Political culture. Is political culture making the impact in America, or political institutions? So you could write political culture versus institutions. If you ask historians and anthropologists or sociologists, they will say, yes, political culture, what your culture is, that will have an impact. But if you ask a political scientist like me, I would say institutions. The institutions we build have a huge impact in the way our government or the policies made. Like, for example, if you take, okay, Americans wanted to have clearly a background check on the gun bias. This was after the shooting in the school, when Obama brought all the parents together and create a sensible legislation that will create a background check so that your mental health is clear, you could own a gun. Both liberals and conservatives in America supported for a background check. But did it go through Congress? It did not. Why? Because Congress, many of the congressmen were accountable to NRA, National Rifle Association. So institutionally, it blocked passage of that legislation. So that's how political institution I didn't define. You're an educational institution. Your college is an educational institution, right? Any Supreme Court is an institution. Congress is an institution. So institutions, these are organizations, make or break policies, not political culture. But if you ask sociologists and historians, they'll say culture, because people want certain thing by certain way because of their political culture. Political scientists like me would say they could want, like the gun legislation, still institutions decide, so institution is. So this is the difference. Now, I think if you study this thoroughly, understand it fully, you will be able to continue the journey with me in learning American government. I can't wait to teach you more things. Looking forward. Let's have fun this semester. Good luck seeing you in the next lecture.